Now,
on News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 6:06 on this Monday morning on O'Connor and Company. Larry O'Connor alongside Julie Gunlock. Coming up at 7:05, Joe DeGeneva, 7:35, Nick Minnock, and 8:15, Trevor Maddich. Happy Veterans Day. Continued here on this Monday after Veterans Day. I wanted to share with you a conversation I recently had with Jessica Lynch. This was an interview on behalf of our friends at Fisher House Foundation, and hopefully really sends a great message here for all of us to remember the brave men and women who have put on the uniform and served our nation. Here it is. When Private First Class Jessica Lynch was taken prisoner by the Iraqi military in the opening days of the Iraq invasion, the entire world held its collective breath. We hoped, we prayed that this young American woman would be rescued, and she was. Jessica, what went into your decision to enlist in the United States Army?
I actually wanted to be a kindergarten teacher. So from the age of 5 years old, I knew that that's what I wanted to do. I had always told everybody whenever they would ask me, what do you want to be when you grow up? Or anytime I had to write a paper about that, subject, it was always, I wanted to be a teacher. I always wanted to be, like my role model, which happened to be my kindergarten teacher. So yeah, that was the plan all the way up until I was a senior in high school. Filled out all the applications, got accepted into an elementary education program. And the summer that I had graduated, my brother, who is a year older than me and was already in college, and then my sister, who's a year and a half younger, and an Army recruiter happened to stop by. He kind of told us, about the opportunities that we would experience, the whole spiel that, they give every new kind of recruit. So putting all three of us into college at the same time, we knew that that was going to kind of be a financial burden on our parents. Again, just because we are so back to back to back. So it was something that my brother and I, we kind of looked at each other and was like, hey, let's join. Let's do this. Everything that recruiter was telling us sounded absolutely amazing. So we knew that he was kind of brought to us for some reason on that certain day out here in the middle of absolutely nowhere. He found us. And so my brother and I ended up joining in the summer of 2001.
And then, of course, on September 11th, 2001, everything changed. And fast forward a year, and the next thing you know, it's the ground invasion of Iraq, and you're there.
My unit ended up deploying in February of 2003 and was stationed in Kuwait until President Bush actually officially declared war, I think like March 20th. So, and then that's when my unit ended up leaving and going across the border. Kind of went downhill down from that moment, unfortunately.
Well, let's talk about the day you were captured. What happened that day? And I hope it isn't too traumatic for you to have to relive this for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't mind at all. I think it's kind of one of those healing, I don't know. It just kind of feels great to be able to kind of get it off your chest and not keep it
all bottled up. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so what happened?
So I'll kind of back up. The morning of March 23rd, my unit was ambushed in the city of Nazaria. And at that point, I was riding in the back of the Humvee, with my best friend who was driving and my first sergeant who was in the passenger seat. But yeah, so we were going down through the middle of the city trying to get back out of there because once the chaos had started of the ambush, it was just kind of go, get out of there. Unfortunately, we were hit by an RPG. So we did eventually ended up having two other soldiers that kind of climbed in the vehicle with us. So once we were hit by the RPG, I was setting up on top of the transmission hump. Unfortunately, I was knocked unconscious. So once we ended up slamming into the back of a disabled 18-wheeler, the back of their trailer, I was knocked unconscious. My best friend hit her head off the steering wheel, had head trauma. The three men that were in the vehicle were eventually all shot and killed. So I was found to be the only one that was still alive, even though I was unconscious. So when the Iraqis came around to determine who was KIA and who was still alive, they noticed that I was unconscious, but I was still breathing. They removed everyone from the vehicle and ended up dragging my body to one of a nearby palace. And that's when they stripped me of all of my military gear and proceeded to break some of my bones.
That is horrible. What did they do?
So they snapped my right humerus, as well as taking a metal pipe and breaking my left tibia. My right foot was crushed, and then I had a head laceration at the top of my head, and proceeded to have a couple of broken ribs. And then I was taken to a nearby hospital, Saddam General in Nasiriyah. That is, and while I'm still unconscious, but the Iraqis removed my left femur bone and they replaced it with a 1940s era rod. In doing so, that caused a severe infection. And they eventually later tried to take me down to an operating room where they tried to amputate my leg. So I was awake at this point. I was conscious. I was back alert. So once they put the oxygen mask over my face, I just was completely out of it. Like, I didn't know what was happening. There was so much chaos that was occurring. So I kind of fought them off. I, cried, I screamed, I, tried to do whatever I could to get them to stop. And they did.
Well, thank God for that. How long were you held prisoner in this hospital?
Yeah, so I was held prisoner for 9 days. And I know that that's not a lot of time, especially going back to World War, II, or even Vietnam, where these soldiers or military were captured for 5-6 years. But for me, 9 days with all of the injuries that I sustained, as well as not being fed or received any water, it felt it felt forever. And honestly, I could honestly feel me slowly starting to fade. And I didn't think that I was going to make it out of there. And honestly, I don't know that if I wasn't rescued at that moment, I don't know how much longer I could have held one.
Let's talk about that rescue. At what point did you realize that a rescue was in process?
I could look around me and I could see that, certain objects and certain things that I knew that I was in a hospital setting. But as far as anything else was occurring around me, I had no idea what was going on until the night of the rescue. And I could hear helicopters, I could hear Humvees, I could hear the tanks rolling in, I could hear bombs kind of going off in the distance. I could hear, gunshots kind of close by. And of course, now we know that that was kind of the diversion tactic to kind of get the Iraqis away from right there in the hospital. But yeah, as far as knowing what was going on, I had absolutely no idea until the Americans had actually entered on the floor, and I could hear them yelling, "Where is Private Lynch?" And of course, then the chaos and, just the hustle and bustle of everything that was occurring outside of that door. At that moment, I had 2 Iraqis men that were kind of guarding me. So one was by the window, one was standing by the door, and they kind of had me locked in there. And I could tell that they were getting very nervous, the fidgety, the whole just outlook of their mannerisms had changed once everything had started occurring. So of course that scared me because I, again, had no idea what was happening. But yeah, eventually those 2 men were led outside of the room. And before I knew it, there were, American, the SEALs, the Rangers, all of them were standing inside of my room over top of my bed. And then that's when the real chaos kind of started, because I didn't know what was happening, because just, everything was circling around and they were trying to put cuffs on me to get me still and stabilize me and get me out of there as quickly as they could. But every time that they would kind of move me to get me off of the bed, onto the gurney to get me down into the waiting helicopter. It was every jerk, every, jumble. It just hurt to be moved again, primarily because the back was broken. And then the inside of the room, one of the SEALs ripped his American flag off of his uniform and placed it in my hand and said, "We're Americans. We're here to take you home."
Wow. More on this story from Jessica Lynch herself, the rescue and then the recovery.
WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
Live
From the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
One of the SEALs ripped his American flag off of his uniform and placed it in my hand and said, "We're Americans. We're here to take you home."
Wow. And was that the moment when you're holding on to that American flag patch from that Navy SEAL? Was it at that moment where you finally began to feel that this ordeal was over?
I don't think it really hit me until I was actually in Germany. Once I was to Germany, then it kind of hit me that, oh, oh, this is real. But I remember asking my mom, kind of going back to your question, but I remember asking my mom, does any of my friends know that I'm missing? Like, is this real? Like, is this happening, that I just had been rescued and I get to go home?
Did your mom respond to you? Did she say, "Oh, honey, everybody knows"?
Yeah, exactly. That's it. I think that was her words, is, the whole world knows by now that you have been rescued and what had happened.
So mom and dad make it to Germany, and I'm sure you were in and out of surgeries and probably don't have much recollection, but is this where Fisher House came in and began the relationship with you and with your family?
Yes, it is. So Fisher House, they boarded, they got over there. Actually, I don't even think that they had any coats or anything with them. I don't think that they brought like any kind of heavy anything with them. It was kind of pack a bag. Let's jump on the next flight out of there so that they get to me. Did not have a place to stay. They didn't have anything. So thankfully, the Fisher House was absolutely there in the time of, my family's need, and was able to give them a place to stay while they were there with myself, so that I could have that family, that familiar faces beside me. They had a home right there at the hospital, right? I think across the street. And they got you they got your parents' coats. That's hilarious. I believe so. Yeah, I believe that. I believe they got them some coats and got them some, obviously a home away from home during that time. It was important for me, mentally, emotionally, physically, it was important for me to have those familiar faces so that I knew that I was home and that I was safe. So yes, thankfully, they also had a home away from home to make me feel at home finally. So how soon before you got stateside and you were back home in America? I stayed in Germany for 2 weeks and then was moved to Walter Reed. So it was about mid-April until the very end of July. And then I was transported out of Walter Reed finally, and was able to go home. So once I got to Walter Reed, it was focusing on all of the other injuries to kind of get them to where I was able to start walking, using my right arm. So it was a lot of physical therapy, occupational therapy, obviously kind of mental help that I needed to make sure that I was stable and good. And I understand that as mom and dad were at Fisher House, right across the street, or actually right on the grounds of Walter Reed, you benefited from some home cooking. You didn't have to eat hospital food. Mom cooked all your favorite food right there and brought it over to you. Yeah, she did. I mean, not every meal, because obviously I did eat at the hospital, but yeah, quite a few times that she was able to make me a home cooked meal, because the Fisher House has a kitchen inside. So all of those families that were staying at the Fisher House at the time, they were all able to use that kind of community kitchen. And it was good for my parents as well, because, they got to go down, they got to visit other military men and women, their families as well. And they were all able to kind of cook together, tell stories. And that was a little bit stress off of my parents as well, because they knew that they were not alone in this situation as well. So they were able to talk to other families. And again, they were right there on the grounds, within a walking distance from the hospital to get to me. But they were able to get outside of the hospital, go over to the Fisher House. Within that little home, they had their own little kind of family area, which they were able to go to get away if they needed their alone time. But also, again, they were able to go down to where they had like a family room that they were able to kind of sit and watch TV with other families. And again, the kitchen where they were able to cook meals and be able to really just enjoy others' companies. And it did. It made my family feel like they were not alone in the situation of having their daughter over at Walter Reed, kind of going through what I was going through. And I know that I was 19 years old, but I still needed my family. And I think that's one of the most important things that people don't realize is that, yes, we are 18 when we go off into the military, but when something traumatic happens to you, you just want, again, that familiar faces, that familiarity of your family.
We're speaking with Jessica Lynch. Of course, you know her story, and you just heard quite a bit of detail about her capture and imprisonment in Iraq and then the horrific injuries that she suffered and now the recovery process. And Jessica, this all happened 20 years ago. I can't believe it was 20 years ago, but it was. It was 2003. So your journey continues, right? You're still needing therapy, needing medical procedures. You're still continuing with the recovery process, and Fisher House is a part of that too, right?
Correct. Absolutely. So as far as like my injuries, I have had over, I think, 20 surgeries, just, going through fixing everything, refixing things, like just my foot alone. I've had 7 surgeries, on it because they have to keep going in, breaking it, fixing it. And, I'll do something stupid of rolling it on, gravel or on a hill that I think that I can walk. So just little bitty things that just twist it will completely just kind of break it again. So we have to go in, reset it. But we're actually getting ready to do my 8th surgery on it in November to correct it again. Unfortunately, it's something that I'm going to always have to deal with. And that's part of my life. And I know that now. But again, like you said, I'm so thankful to be able to have, a VA close by that, I think there's one. I can't say there are, but there is one that's in West Virginia in Huntington. I will not be doing my surgery there, so I won't be able to stay there. But it is an outpatient surgery, so it'll kind of be in and out. We do have a Fisher House in Huntington, West Virginia now. So I have been there. I've looked at it.
Well, Jessica, you began your story by telling us that you always wanted to be a school teacher. From the earliest time you can remember, you wanted to be a school teacher. And you joined the Army to help pay for college. And then everything happened to you. So why don't you update us? What's going on in your life now? What are you up to?
Well, I went back to school after a couple of years of physical therapy, getting, myself back up on my feet. And went back to school and got my elementary education degree. So I am in the school systems. I absolutely love it, enjoy it. And then I also got my master's. So I continued on with my education, got my master's degree in communication. So I also am able to go around and kind of take what I've learned from not only the past 20 years, but of course my college classes and apply it to a speaking career. So I'm a motivational speaker. And again, when I'm not on the road speaking, I am in the classrooms teaching. So it's a little bit of the best of both worlds. And I am so happy that I am, I'm here first and foremost to be able to continue not only trying to inspire veterans and people who want to give up, but also, again, to inspire the little children.
Thank you, Jessica Lynch.
Now,
On News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
O'Connor and Company.
6:37 here with Larry O'Connor alongside Julie Gunlock. At 7:05, Joe DeGeneva will join us. 7:35, Nick Minnock, latest out of his attempt to get any kind of comment from the Loudoun County Superintendent of Schools. And at 8:15, Trevor Maddich. I'm Larry O'Connor alongside Julie Gunlock. Oh, I already said that. Hi, Julie. Good morning.
Good morning.
And joining us now is Elicia Brand, a mom out in Loudoun County, founder of Army of Parents. And I understand there was a incident at Harmony Middle School where a swastika was painted on the desk of a Jewish child, and of course I would think that there would be rules against such things, Elicia, and yet at the same time, Loudoun County school system allowed a walkout and demonstration at Stonebridge High School of almost 100 students protesting in support of Palestine, and we've seen how those demonstrations turn out. So, I mean, what's happening in Loudoun schools, and why don't we have some clear leadership from the superintendent and the school board?
Well, Jack, good morning first.
Morning.
And we do have so much to talk about. Dr. Spence had a tremendous opportunity to be a hero, but between the fentanyl overdoses and the anti-Semitism, he's continuing Dr. Ziegler's legacy of not communicating to parents and treating our school system as if he's a CEO protecting stockholders and a company's reputation instead of protecting our children. So with the anti-Semitism, these pro-Hamas walkouts that involve the chant from the river to the sea, which is a call for the extermination of Jews. It's a call for violence. So with this very dangerous rhetoric, how can we expect anything less than more anti-Semitism, more acts of violence, or more swastikas on desks? How can we not expect an invitation to anti-Semites to hurt Jews here in Loudoun County?
Yeah.
Just very disappointed at the lack of communication for these walkouts and the fact that there is not zero tolerance for these kinds of chants. But when you have somebody like Chair Randall, who was ignorant and unapologetic about her anti-Semitic actions, how can you expect our kids to be any different? But we have Dr. Spence, who should be leading this charge, but he's just not.
You know, Elicia, I'm just wondering, we had a similar march in Alexandria, Virginia that I tweeted about over the weekend. And I am just wondering, these rallies, these anti-Semitic rallies are held on school grounds. They're not in some other community space. They are on school grounds. I assume this one was on school grounds. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct.
I don't understand how this isn't really getting close to a civil rights violation for Jewish students. Have you talked to any lawyers about this or the ADL? Is there any interest in a lawsuit? Because again, you are suggesting these students are suggesting the extermination of Jewish students. How can this be allowed on school grounds?
Well, I invite any lawyers who are listening right now to please contact me, because we have to protect our Jewish community. I've spoken to many Jews in Loudoun County, and they are afraid to speak up. Tomorrow, there is a school board meeting, and no one wants to speak because they are afraid of being literally killed. We are seeing babies being beheaded, children being cut out of mothers' stomachs and stabbed by terrorists in Israel. And for the first time in our lifetime since the Holocaust, Jews in America are afraid of being killed.
Yeah.
I never thought this would happen. They are afraid to speak. They are taking their Jewish stars off of their kids and sending them to school. Children are being intimidated, harassed, afraid for their lives. And we have a school board, except for Tiffany Polifko, and a superintendent that is hiding this from parents and allowing this to happen. So please, I know you're speaking with Joe DeGeneva. Please call me. We need to stop this. This is what happened before the Holocaust in Germany. We are headed in that direction.
Well, we're talking to Nick Minnock later, and he's trying to track down the superintendent on the fentanyl story. So we're loaded up here. I do want to ask you this, though, Elicia. This would be a great conversation to have on this Monday morning after Election Day last week to talk about what the new Loudoun County School Board will do to address such things. But we don't have a new Loudoun County School Board. I mean, how is it these issues are not getting? You're out there on the ground talking to moms and dads and knocking on doors. What happened in the elections?
Well, we do have Dina Griffiths, who won against incumbent Harris Mahadavi, which should tell you everything you need to know because he was an incumbent. He had over $100,000 to run his race, and Dina had, I think, less than $20,000. And the people spoke. They want change. They do not want this to continue. Dina is very sensitive to the Jewish community. She will not allow this to continue, but you have to remember that she is only one voice on the board. I truly believe that Lauren Chernoff will not allow this, as well as Carrie LaBelle. So while we did not overtake the board, we do have 3 very strong candidates, and they will work with parents, and we're hoping that they can have a better effect than the last board. But unfortunately, Ann Donahue, who beat out Mike Rivera, is an activist, and she is from the DOJ. She was in violation of the Hatch Act when she ran. Now that she has been elected, she has quit. She quit her job, I think, October 12th. But while she was running, she was in violation of the Hatch Act, and she's an activist.
That doesn't help us now. The election's over. All right, Elicia, we got to leave it there. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. We'll just keep adding this to the list of everything that needs to be fixed in Loudoun County schools, and we'll keep beating the drum right along with you. Thank you. Hey, Julie, remember that time at the Video Music Awards when Kanye West ran up and grabbed Taylor Swift's microphone from her? You know, I'm gonna let you finish, but everybody knows Beyonce's video was the video of the year, right? That's it's called being Kanye'd when someone jumps up on stage and grabs your mic. Well, Greta Thunberg got Kanye'd at a climate protest yesterday. Here, listen to what happened.
We have not been listening. The people in power have not been listening.
I come here for a climate demonstration, not a political view.
Where's this guy been? I claim here for a climate demonstration, not a political view. All you get is political views. They're socialists. And anyway, they run him off the stage, but then they start this chant. Keep it going. No? We don't. Okay. Well, sorry. The audio keeps going there, and they start chanting. They start chanting, "No climate justice in occupied land. No climate justice on occupied land."
Yep.
So, in other words, here we go. Yeah, and Greta joins along with the chant. In other words, Israel is occupying. You know what that means. Occupied land means the entirety of Israel.
Yes, it's river to the sea baloney. And let's not forget, just a couple of weeks ago, Greta had a picture with 3 of her very unattractive, smelly friends, and there was a little octopus toy on her seat. There were no other sort of little props, just this little octopus, which is used as sort of an image of big bad Jews taking over the world.
Right, their tentacles reaching across the world.
And she claimed, no, octopus is used to soothe autistic people. Maybe we should revisit that.
Well, you know what else is used to soothe autistic people? Anti-Semitic chants in a giant mob marching down the streets in a German accent down the streets of Amsterdam.
Yes, very soothing.
Yeah, that sort of evokes some disturbing images of the past, doesn't it? Yeah. It's 6:53.